channel. So today we are going to cover my 100 mile update review for the New Balance 680 V7. So I've just gone past 100 miles in this shoe. It's part of the 3 shoe budget rotation I'm doing at the minute as part of my half marathon training. I've been using all 3 budget shoes within that rotation, and today it's the turn of the New Balance Fresh Foam 680 V7. I said 100 miles done. I'll give you an update review today, following on from the initial review. So let's dive straight in. So I've just gone past 100 miles. I say I always do a follow-up review just to give everyone a bit more information. I said this budget shoe rotation has been fairly popular. People are kind of keen to see how these low-cost shoes are holding up. So like I said, today I'm going to go into a bit more detail. I cover a score for the outsole, midsole, upper. I give a value score and a durability score, which gives everyone a kind of my opinion in terms of an overall score in terms of how good or bad these shoes are, which is the whole kind of point of the project. Like I said, I bought these all on a budget, so let's get on with the New Balance review, 100 mile review. So yeah, I always start my reviews with the outsole. It's one of the kind of key talking points of a shoe and probably one of the more important ones. So again, compared to the other 2 in the budget rotation, these were the most expensive. I'll go into value later, but in terms of durability, 100 miles in, I'll do some close-ups as I'm talking. The outsole is holding up pretty well. It's grippy in pretty much every circumstance. I've had a couple of minor little slips in terms of really wet, slick conditions. So when it's been really wet and it's been a kind of standing water on the roads, pavements, etc. I've had a couple of tiny little kind of loss of friction, loss of traction once I've been running, but not very common, not very often. So overall, pretty good grip in most use cases. I've also used this on kind of light trails, not very technical stuff. I've used them on road and tarmac predominantly, a couple of gravel paths, etc. And I said they hold up pretty well. There is starting to show a little bit of wear now in the kind of back of the forefoot, front of the midfoot, the kind of the ball of the foot area where most of my impact comes from. More than the Asics and the Adidas, which are the other 2 shoes in this rotation and this budget shoe experiment. So they're showing a bit more wear and tear than those 2, but they still hold up pretty well. The durability looks pretty good. I can't see them wearing down loads and loads. So in terms of overall, for the outsole, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Like I said, it's not quite as good as the Adidas outsole. It's got a bit more rubber to it. They're a bit more clumpy. They're not as flexible under the foot in terms of the road feel. Obviously, part of that is to do with the midsole as well. But outsole, I'll give it 8 out of 10 for the outsole after 100 miles. Okay, so moving on to the midsole. So I said this is the first dual density midsole I've ever run in. Like I said, I've only come back to running for a couple of years now, so and again I tend to try and let my shoes last as long as they can. I don't go through shoes. I don't have a large budget, again, hence why I kind of went through this budget rotation. So yes, it's a dual density midsole, fresh foam from New Balance. It's the first time I've ever run in a dual density. I have enjoyed running it. It's probably the most comfortable of the 3, definitely the most comfortable of the 3. It feels like you can run it for a long time. I've done kind of longer runs in this, half marathons. I did a 17k just yesterday or the day before, and again, your feet never feel like they're hitting the floor. It never deadens out. It never gets too squishy. It's nice and comfortable, but not too soft. I think the top layer's probably the top one is probably the slightly softer foam which your foot sinks into, and then the bottom one, the bigger chunk of it, is probably the slightly firmer foam to keep your foot off the floor. I'll put the stack heights and weight stuff on the screen. But yeah, so it's a really comfortable midsole. Initially, I felt the shoe felt a bit heavy, but the more and more I've used it, and after doing actual weigh-in the other week in one of my other vlogs, I think it was when I did the update, this ended up being the lightest of the 3 shoes, even though it's on foot, it kind of felt the heaviest, especially after say 10k, it started to weigh down my legs. But yeah, so I'm starting to like this more and more. Midsole is part of that. It's a really comfortable midsole. This might be one I use for the half marathon races later on in the year, just because again I know it's guaranteed to be comfortable and responsive and protect the feet for the duration. So for the midsole, I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10. It's been really comfortable. I've done different things in it. I've not done much shorter, sharper bursts in speed of it, because again this isn't predominantly the usage of it. It's mainly a daily trainer. I've been using it from like say 7 or 8k up to say 15 up to 20k. and it's done everything I've asked of it. Really comfortable shoe to use, and really enjoyed using it so far. Okay, so moving on to the upper now. I had some kind of hesitation at the start. It felt like a thicker upper. It's a dual engineered mesh, so there's the lighter blue outer lining which you see, and then underneath it's got a kind of a navy one, which is the inside layer. So it's a kind of double mesh. It feels pretty thick, it feels pretty coarse. There's not loads and loads of air holes and eyelets for the air to breathe through. There is enough, but again, it wasn't the most breathable shoe after the initial run. However, I've not really had any overheating issues. Lockdown's pretty good. I think the tongue's a bit too wide. I don't know what you think. I'll try and get some close-ups again, but it's a really wide tongue, so when you fasten it up, it kind of comes round your foot, almost touches your ankle bone, and it's kind of unnecessary. Sometimes it can be a bit restrictive, and when you tighten your lace up, it's almost pushing into the sides of your foot. These are all like minor things I'm picking up on. So lockdown's pretty good. The lacing isn't, laces aren't the greatest. They're not kind of any kind of elastic to them at all. They're just kind of old school cotton, really rigid laces, so you don't want to cinch when you cinch them down. You can't get that extra cinch when it just gives a little bit. But lockdown's pretty good. The laces are a little bit short as well, so I use a runner's knot, and you've just about got enough for a double knot on top of that. Just about get the knot tied and then get a quick loop in. So they could be a tiny bit longer, but again, these are all minor stuff. But all combined, I'd probably give the upper a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, there's it's a bit thick, a bit heavy. The laces aren't the greatest quality. The tongue's a little bit wide. Comfort's there though, and I'd say it's just about perfect. Not too plush, not too sparse. A really rigid heel counter, which I tend to kind of not prefer, but I don't mind them at all. So yeah, overall for the upper, it's 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so just going to move on and wrap it up now with the last two. So value, these were a £90 shoe RRP. I picked them up for 50. So these were the most expensive of the three. So I said the other two I picked up for 33 and 34 pounds. Picked these up for 50. These were almost the safety net. Actually, I think I mentioned it in a previous vlog. Because I was doing this half marathon training, and I wasn't sure how good or bad these three shoes were going to be, and I knew I was going into a half marathon training block. I wanted to ensure that at least one of the three were going to be pretty solid, a pretty safe bet. A dual density midsole shoe from New Balance, which was RRP'd for 90, should be a pretty solid bet. It turned out to be that way. So for £90, obviously, it's a pretty solid shoe. I got it for 50, which obviously makes it a far better proposition, nearly half the price. For £50, it's a really good shoe. For £90, I'll probably be slightly disappointed. It's not the most responsive shoe in the world. Like I said, last year I had the Reebok Float Ride, which is a £75 shoe RRP, and I picked that up for around the same price as these. And although these are better for longer distances, so the biggest drawback of the Reebok is anything past, say, 13, 14, 15k, it starts to bottom out a bit. The foams aren't that much softer, and it's only a single foam, and it's not quite as high a stack. You start to feel like it's deadening out a little bit, and your feet's kind of getting the impact from the road surface. But I much prefer to running them. They're far more responsive, far more enjoyable to run in. They feel lighter. They've just got just little things that are little again intangibles that you prefer to run in. These are okay to run in. I'd say these are a great solid daily trainer, just chewing up the miles, comfort, longer distances especially. They protect your feet. The dual density then comes into its own in terms of the comfort and the protection. And they're just, like I say, a good solid daily trainer. They're not really enjoyable to run in. The Rocker's not particularly enjoyable in terms of, it's not unenjoyable, it's fairly smooth. It's just not, you don't finish the run and think, oh, that was amazing. But yeah, so overall value, I'll probably give it a 7, because obviously I've got to go for RRP price. If I pick these up for £90, I will be slightly disappointed, and again that's in comparison to the other two, which again I'll go into when I cover them. But again, I've picked them up. They're pretty much half the price RRP, and I picked them up for just over half the price of these. So are these twice as good? I don't think they are. So again, I was most disappointed with these. The more and more I use them now, though, the more and more I'm coming to like them. But again, with that higher price tag, I probably had a bit more expectation on them, and they've not really lived up to that. So value, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10, like I said. For a £90 shoe, there's only one other pair of shoes I've ever owned which are more expensive than these in terms of retail cost, and that was my Hoka Rincons. They were a £105 shoe, which again I picked up for discount, but again I can notice the difference out. They're really light. The Meta Rocker with the Hokas is kind of known now that they're a really easy, smooth ride. They almost propel you to run quicker. The laces are good, the lockdown's great. The upper is really thin and breathable, so all that, and then only actually £15 more than these. I expected a little bit more from these, I suppose, but overall not bad. But for value, I give it a 7 out of 10 because of the higher price bracket. Okay, so final category now is durability. I always give it a durability score. I always think for me it's one of the most important things because it links into everything else, especially in terms of value. If you've got a not very durable shoe, then the value will obviously be affected in terms of what is value. Well, if it's costly and lasts a long time, that's okay. If it's cheap and lasts a long time, that's really great value. So durability, I said the upper's not going anywhere. Generally these days, modern running shoes, the uppers last and last. Midsole, again with the dual density, I'm hoping that will have a fairly long life. It won't deaden out too fast. And the outsole after 100 miles, it's showing very minimal wear and tear. I said a little bit on the high abrasion areas, but probably a tiny bit more than I would have expected. So that'll probably be the first thing to go, is the outsole. But again, the grip's good, so it's a fairly soft rubber, presumably hence why it's wearing down a little bit quicker. That's one of the drawbacks of the Asics, that I found that a really hard rubber, really clumpy shoe. But that's not showing any wear and tear, so again there's a bit of a trade-off. So durability though, I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10. I said most of it's going to last and last. Again, I predict it's probably going to do at least 500 miles. I'm going to probably try and get 500 miles plus out of it, so 800 kilometres. And again, for a shoe that costs 50 quid, obviously I paid for 90, but I picked up for 50 quid. I think it's still available now for 50 quid off sports shoes or other retailers. I got these from Sports Shoes. It's just my go-to. Again, I have no affiliation with anything. It's just my opinion. But yeah, so durability is probably going to last and last. Again, a £50 shoe, anything under 50 quid, and you can get it 500 miles from it. Again, the cost per mile is really low. I don't think you can have any complaints really. So yeah, so just to wrap it up there, a quick summary. So if my maths is right, it's 40 out of 50, the score, so 80%, which again is a pretty solid score for a shoe that's, again, on a budget. It's just underneath the Adidas score, so again, they're pretty similar. I think what's done the Adidas is a favour is that the Duramo 10 is that obviously that's such a cheap shoe, and again, it's quite surprised me in terms of how well that's performed. I probably, again, was probably harsh on this on the initial run because I was expecting far more from it in terms of the price tag. But again, they're different kind of shoes and they do different types of jobs. So yeah, so just to wrap it up, I said the Asics, I'm not a million miles away from 100 miles now. I've done the Adidas Duramo 100 mile update. I've done this New Balance update. The Jolt 3, Asics Jolt 3 update will come within the next week or two, hopefully, once I get a few more runs during that shoe. And I'll update everyone on that, on the 100 miles for that shoe as well. But yeah, quick summary, like I said, the shoe's pretty solid. Like I said, 80% score, 40 out of 50. If anyone's looking to buy a New Balance, or you've used New Balances in the past, again, the 1080 is the top of the range. You've got the 880, etc. This is the 680, so is kind of the lower end of the middle of the offering. It's a good solid daily trainer, probably better for the longer distances. So I'd say 10k plus, definitely. So if you do, I said this is perfect for me for half marathon training, even marathon training. I think I wouldn't have any concerns trying to run half marathon training in this, doing the long runs. That's what I'd predominantly use it for. Good solid long runs. Potentially even, like I say, steezy or recovery runs. Like I said, it's not the most responsive, it's not the quickest, it does feel quite heavy on foot, so I wouldn't particularly use it for speed work. But like I say, anything solid, just a solid workhorse daily trainer, this is probably up there. Like I say, it's comparable to the Reebok Float Ride, that is cheaper slightly, but I always find that a bit more responsive. But again, that has limitations in terms of the duration that can go for. I prefer that's a better shoe for shorter distances. So yeah, just quick wrap it up. That's the 100 mile update for the New Balance 680 V7. Like I said, I'll continue to use all these three shoes throughout my half marathon training for Chester, and then obviously rolling into Cheshire half marathon as well in September. These will be used all through 2023. I'll do updates at 250 miles and potentially even 500 miles, depends how quickly I get to them goals. I'll definitely do the 250 mile update just to give everyone progress in terms of how well they're doing or how quickly they're deteriorating. But as always, thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe as usual, and I will see everyone on the next one.